Folks, it's nearly Halloween, and of course that can only mean one thing for movie fans: an increasingly divisive internet debate over which Halloween movies are the best. And you guys know me, I don't like to play the games online of what's hot, what's not, what's cool for you versus what's cool for me. So today, I'm just going to be talking about 10 movies that I fully intend on watching this Halloween season. In fact, we're going to do a top 10, so 10 movies that I'll probably watch in the 10 days leading up to the spookiest day of the year. Let's go. Alright, now these aren't all gonna be obvious choices. These are mostly gonna be things that are personal for me, but I think that's gonna make this list a little more interesting because you might not hear the same old ones that you always hear. That being said, there are a few classics on here. I mean, come on, it's Halloween. And the last little disclaimer that I want to give here, these are not in any particular order, although they might be in the order that I watched the movies in, but not in any order in terms of which ones I like more.
Okay, well, folks, I can do a clearance, but it's not gonna be cheap. Although I do offer a 6-month guarantee.
The Frighteners. Anybody who knows me knows that this is not only one of my favorite films for Halloween time, it's absolutely one of my favorite films in general. This movie was directed by Peter Jackson, who of course you would know as the iconic filmmaker behind the Lord of the Rings trilogy. Well, this was the movie he made just before that. It's a comedy, horror, love, revenge story kind of all amalgamated into one. It's set in New Zealand. It's very spooky, yet very funny.
Oh, Patricia. You kill her. I'll watch.
Also, if you just look at the cast, I mean, we're talking Michael J. Fox, Jake Busey, Jeffrey Combs is in this movie, okay? R. Lee Ermey even has a cameo as kind of the same character that he played in Full Metal Jacket, which is wonderful. Overall, this is just really good shit. Up next, we have Gretel and Hansel. Now, everybody's familiar with the Hansel and Gretel storyline, and this movie is kind of a direct adaptation of the original lore. But if you know the original lore, you know how fucking scary it is.
It isn't scary for me, and it helps me go to bed.
This movie was directed by Osgood Perkins, who most people would know now as the director behind Longlegs and the upcoming Stephen King adaptation, The Monkey. Oz Perkins has made nothing but good movies in my opinion, and if you ask me, Gretel and Hansel is probably his best, when it comes to my money anyway. It stars Sophia Lillis, who kind of has some horror credentials of her own these days as well. It's kind of one of those movies that's more about the atmosphere and the tone than the goings-on, so a lot of it's left to the imagination, but I promise you, there's plenty of blood, guts, and spooks for those of you looking for something a little more interesting. Joyride. This movie came out in 2001. It stars Paul Walker and Steve Zahn as brothers, taking their friend, played by Lily Sobieski, across the country from college to home for like Thanksgiving or summer break. I think it's summer break. Along the way, they pick up one of those CB radios you can put in your car, and they make a couple of innocent or seemingly harmless prank calls to some of the truckers on the road, until they prank the wrong one.
Pink champagne. Tell them that you like pink champagne.
And this becomes an epic road trip / quest for survival across the continental United States as these teenagers try to outrun a very scary and angry trucker. This movie rules. I'm dead serious about that. If you haven't seen it, please check it out. It's so underrated. Fright Night, the remake. Now see, here's where I wanted to do things a little bit differently, because you see, most people's Halloween list will definitely have the original Tom Holland Fright Night on it. And while I say that is probably one of the greatest vampire movies ever made, I also think the remake gets slept on a little too much.
Hey. Please go, it'll be alright. Go, take her and go. Amy, take her and go!
It's a fairly faithful remake, but it also offers its own new stuff with a modern setting, so it is cool. We live in a time where cell phones exist, and that comes into play in this story. Also, Colin Farrell is an iconic actor, and it's weird that he doesn't get more praise for this role because while it might read as kind of a very of-its-time edgelord vampire, personally I think it's pretty fucking scary. Extraordinary. Now, I have done a 5-minute movie episode specifically about this film. It's absolutely one of my favorite movies, specifically for Halloween time, but just in general. It has all the flavor and flair of the Ghostbusters, but it's new and it's Irish, and the cast is brilliant. Will Forte plays the villain of this movie, but if that's not enough to sell you on it, you have Maeve Higgins as the main character, and she is pure brilliance. She is so funny.
Like in Ghostbusters.
Oh, I haven't read that.
I don't think I know very many people who have even seen this movie. It's definitely slept on. So if you're looking for something to watch this Halloween and you want something that you can watch while having a few laughs and maybe not being totally scared, this is definitely that movie. Creepshow 2. Now everybody loves Creepshow, from the anthology series on HBO to some of the movies, and I do mean some of the movies. However, the best of those movies, in my opinion, is Creepshow 2. This movie is just so much fun. It's 3 short horror stories. Of course, there's some Stephen King influence in here. I believe he wrote some of these. The best one, in my opinion, being the one right in the middle. It's kind of about a blob monster that's stalking some teens in the lake, and it is very, very rooted in the paranoia that comes with being on open water. So it's very fun. This movie came out in 1987, so it still is at a time where practical effects were used heavily in movies like this, so a lot of the blood, guts, and gore, very real, very gross. I saw the TV glow. I think the title card accidentally said 2020. I don't know where that came from. The movie just came out. I Saw the TV Glow is an incredible movie. It's kind of one of those nostalgic horror movies, and it's very cerebral. It's what I would guess the kids would call elevated horror, which I find to be kind of a silly term. But it's a very heady movie. It's really reliant on your relationship to the characters and the subject matter, but if you like that kind of stuff as much as I do, this movie to me is like the new Donnie Darko. It's got all of those kind of epic, edgy questions. I think teens are gonna love this movie, but I especially think that going on, this movie is just gonna gain more and more momentum as a classic.
What about you? Do you like girls?
I think that I like TV shows.
Frankenweenie. Now, of course, I'm talking about the animated Frankenweenie, but there was a live-action version or a kind of shorter version of this that Tim Burton had made way, way back in the day. Of all the Tim Burton movies that make their way onto Halloween lists, I'm surprised this one isn't talked about even more, because to me, it's right under Nightmare Before Christmas.
He got hit by lightning.
Well, that is bad. But he did not get hit.
The movie's in claymation, which we know is a staple style for Tim Burton, but it's also black and white, and it kind of tells the story of Frankenstein, only it's about a young boy who loses his dog and wants to do anything he can to bring his dog back to life. It's not only cute and funny, but it's also charming and soaked in that Halloween atmosphere. So if you guys are looking for something that you can watch with the kids this Halloween, this might be the one for you. Clue. Now, I love Tim Curry, and I specifically love him in his run in the 70s and 80s. This movie falls into that. This movie came out in 1985, and it has remained one of the most nostalgic and fun movies for me to watch around Halloween every year. There's nothing specifically about Halloween in this film, but it is kind of an autumn night murder mystery, and it's just got all of the vibes that I look for around this time of year.
Well, he's certainly dead now. Why would anyone want to kill him twice?
Seems so unnecessary.
Of course, you've got an incredible ensemble cast, you've got fun writing, you've got a sharp ending with multiple different outcomes. And it's based on a board game that we all know and love, so that nostalgia factor is really cranked up there.
This is getting serious.
And last but most certainly not least, my favorite musical of all time and an absolute necessity for me around Halloween, and that is that movie right there, the Rocky Horror Picture Show. Now, this movie was pretty much designed to my liking, if you ask me. I mean, it's a musical. I love musicals. It's kind of spooky. It's got a Halloween midnight atmosphere. That's kind of my favorite shit. It stars Tim Curry, who's one of my favorite actors. And of course, how could I forget the music? This movie has a soundtrack that you can straight up listen to year-round without getting sick of it, or at least that's the case for me, and I love it. It's sexy, it's fun, it's funny, it's musical, it's a little spooky, it's just a great movie all around.
There are those who say that life is an illusion, and that reality is simply a figment of the imagination.
Well guys, those are the 10 movies that I will most likely be watching leading up to the spookiest day of the year, Halloween. But of course, I am not the only one that wants to be part of this conversation, so let me know what you are going to be watching this Halloween season. And if you have any recommendations for movies I would like based on my list here, please let me know. I don't know how long this video has shaped up to be, but you guys know we like to keep it short and sweet over here. So I think that's all I got for you today. But make sure you check back in, like the video, and subscribe so you can get, more of all of that. Happy Halloween, everybody. Bye.